The alternate interior angles theorem, or theorem 3-1, says if a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then alternate interior angles are congruent. So if L is parallel to M, then angle 4 is congruent to angle 6, and angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. The corresponding angles theorem, known as theorem 3-2, if a transversal intersects two parallel lines, then corresponding angles are congruent. So again, if L is parallel to M, then angles 1 and 5 are congruent, angles 2 and 6 are congruent, as are 3 and 7, and 4 and 8. Problem 2, proving an angle relationship. So we're given that A is parallel to B, we're given the diagram at the right, and we're asked to prove that angle 1 and angle 8 are supplementary. Well, let's think about what we know. We know that A is parallel to B, that was given. We know that angles 1 and 5 are corresponding. We know that angles 5 and 8 form a linear pair. What we need is to establish that angle 1 and 8 are supplementary, or to show that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180. So our plan? Well, we can show that angle 1 is congruent to angle 5, and that the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180. Then just substitute the measure of angle 1 for the measure of angle 5, and prove that angle 1 and 8 are supplementary. So here's what our two-column proof looks like. Statement 1, A is parallel to B. Reason 1, given. Statement 2, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. And what that does is it jumps us from one set of angles, one set of 4 angles created by the transversal, to the other set. Where we really need to end up, we need to establish this relationship between angle 1 and this other set of angles. And our technique for doing that right now is corresponding angles. Because we know, as we can see in reason 2, if lines are parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. Statement 3, the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 5. This often feels redundant, but we're actually establishing something important here. And we can state that by reason 3, congruent angles have equal measures. All right, statement 4, angle 5 and angle 8 are supplementary. And we know that by reason 4, angles that form a linear pair are supplementary. And we can see that angles 5 and 8 do form a linear pair. Statement 5, the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180. And that reason 5 that's just our definition of supplementary angles. Statement 6, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180. And this is the substitution property. Here we're simply substituting the measure of angle 1 for the measure of angle 5 because we know they're equivalent. Refer back to statement 3. We can do that by reason 6, the substitution property. And finally, statement 7, angle 1 and angle 8 are supplementary. We can now state that by reason 7, the definition of supplementary angles. Your turn. Using the same given information and the diagram from problem 2, prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 7.